up guys, welcome back to the channel. Sorry I haven't been posting in a while, that's on me. I'm gonna try and do better, and I just realized the white on white, come on man, such a rookie mistake. Yeah, alright, I threw on the Hawaiian shirt to fit the theme and also to not make it look like I'm stuck to my wall, so let's continue with the review. Now, the best way I can sum up the Uncharted movie is that it is aggressively average. Now, I always preferred to do these reviews, a day or two after watching the movie, because it lets me, digest and stew over what I just watched. So I'll be real with you. I didn't hate this movie when I left the theaters, and I still kind of don't. Before you start calling me like a fraud of an Uncharted fan for even acknowledging this mess, let's chill for a second and let's rewind a little bit. Now, I think the reason why I don't hate the Uncharted movie is because I had lowered my expectations going into the movie so much, so that as long as it didn't directly hurt the lore and the canon of the film. Now on to casting and characters, right? I think it's safe to say that most Uncharted fans, myself included, were left bemused at the initial announcement that Holland would be playing the iconic Nathan Drake, and Marky Mark would be playing Victor Sullivan. And despite Tom Holland's best attempts, I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't picture him as Drake, or even a younger version of Drake for that movie. Mark Wahlberg, on the other hand, doesn't really try at all. He's just doing his thing. He's just being himself. I'm not denying his credentials as an actor. Like, this isn't a hate piece on Mark Wahlberg. It's very painfully obvious that he wasn't the right choice for Sully. And, if I want to be nice to the film, I would say that once you kind of wipe your memory clean of what Sully should be or should act like, I don't think Wahlberg does a really bad job. He just being himself. But that being said, you have to completely disregard Wahlberg as Sully if you want to have any sort of believability in this movie. But I understand the oxymoron in saying that, because why should we not think of him as Sully when this has the giant Uncharted logo slapped on it, right? So I completely agree with that. There was a scene at the start when he's introduced and he's like in a tank top and he's jacked. Like, I was laughing in the theater because imagining Sully like jacked like that just doesn't fly with me. Continuing with the cast, we have Sophia Taylor-Ali, who plays Chloe Fraser, who we've seen in the games before. And she probably looks like the most accurate portrayal to her video game counterpart, but the swagger and the confidence we know and love Chloe for doesn't quite translate into the movie as well. And then, of course, we have the two villains of the movie, the big bads. They're new characters to the universe. We haven't seen them in the games before. But that being said, you probably won't remember them the moment you leave the theater. And then there's a twist that comes out later that makes it even worse, which I'll get into later. But ultimately, these two, villains just weren't all that fantastic. But Uncharted isn't a franchise particularly known for having very strong villains, so I could close one eye on that. But if anything, since you're doing a movie from scratch, you have a chance to do something that's not really been done before. Make a memorable villain in this case. Now on to the actual story where the bulk of the problems lie. Now, my first gripe is that everything in this movie feels so easy. It feels too easy, man. There are no interesting or challenging puzzles to speak of, which anyone who's played the game knows that these puzzles are a core part of the series. They are one of the most memorable points in any of these games, completing these larger than life epic puzzles. And sometimes they're not even that epic. Sometimes they are just challenging and interesting to have it. There was like one puzzle or two puzzles in this movie, both of which were just like revolved around turning a keys. Also, another big problem, there were no epic locations. Uncharted is supposed to have these crazy, undiscovered, new, never touched in millennia locations. Why? That's the point. That's why it's called Uncharted. If not, you might as well just call this movie Charted, because everything is kind of just there. There's no difficulty getting to a certain spot. There's no uniqueness to the locations. I'm gonna list off a few that I remember off the top of my head. They go into like this fancy gallery for an auction. Then they go into a church in Barcelona. From said church, they enter a sewer. Then they're in like a club. They somehow find their way into a freaking Papa John's. Then they end up on a plane. And this one is the most what the F, but they stumble upon an island resort. Like, guys, why? I want my characters to suffer. Like, they don't need a break. Don't put them on an island resort, especially like don't just by sheer dumb luck throw them into an island resort. And then this was probably the most unforgivable one. When they find the treasure, there's little to no resistance. Actually, there is no resistance. Nate pretty much finds out the coordinates based on something his brother Sam tells him in like a callback from like the start of the movie, and then he's able to find the exact trajectory and location of said treasure, and then he just dives into the water, comes out, and he's in like a little cave with the two freaking pirate ships there. And then the villains just kind of stumble upon him going to said island with binoculars. It's so lazy. It's really super lazy writing. You know, in an Uncharted movie, you want that sense of adventure, you want that sense of discovery and mystery, but none of that is here, unfortunately. Now, the treasure, by the way, is like pirate gold once again, which is, there's nothing wrong with that, but it has such a boring backstory, you know. There's little to no expansion on what happened. There are no twists and turns with, you know, why the treasure is here, or, you know, what's wrong with the treasure. That's basically the treasure or the artifact that Nathan Drake is looking for in all these games. There's usually a backstory which gives this artifact or this place a sense that it's another character on its own. With this treasure, you could have replaced it with anything, it wouldn't have mattered because there was nothing to it. Usually we see the ultimate Uncharted treasure in the various games have a huge twist towards the end, you know, or there's like a mystery or a curse attached to it, just something to give it some character. But in this case, it just seems like the pirates left them there and that, you know, it's not really explained at all. Now back to the villains before we wrap this up. So Antonio Banderas is hyped up as this mad lad who, you know, kills his own father to preserve his family's fortune, which is all great. That is good. You know, he's hammy, but that's great. That is something I can, you know, resonate with as a bad guy. Like, okay, this guy is insane. He was willing to kill his father for like gold and legacy or whatever. I do see the irony in that as well. But that being said, his ass is capped by the other bad guy, someone who he hired, by the way, even before the start of the third act. This not only made the film weaker, because at least Antonio Banderas' character had the motivation of preserving, you know, family fortune because his father wanted to give away all their entire wealth because it was blood money. And he's actually someone who is menacing enough because he has unlimited resources. And a lot of the stuff that's unbelievable, you could play it off as him just, you know, throwing cash at the problem, and we kind of buy it. Also, why would any of his hired guns be okay with killing him? It's not like he was mistreating them. I think not once did he, you know, show that he was unstable or wasn't able to, you know, provide them with what they needed. So I don't buy the fact that they would side with this other villain in killing him. I just don't buy it. I mean, this film is just one backstab after another, and none are really well executed or earned for that matter. Despite me being critical of this film, I still don't hate it, even though all signs are telling me that I should. Ultimately, you know, I won't link this film to the games moving forward, and I will just continue to love the games separately. But, you know, at least now I know that a big budget Hollywood studio, you know, was unable to give this game the movie screen treatment that it deserves. If you really want a quick taste of what an Uncharted movie should look like, I've linked a short film starring Nathan Fillion in the bio below. All Uncharted fans should absolutely watch this. It's a very short watch. It's 2 scenes. It's a 15-minute short film. But in those 15 minutes, it's able to capture the essence of Uncharted way better than what the Uncharted film could in 2 hours. So to end this off, if you get easily pissed off at your favorite IPs being ruined, I wouldn't recommend Uncharted to anybody. But if you're just looking to watch something wacky and action-packed, you know, why not? Anyway, guys, that's the end of my review. Thank you so much for sticking around and watching this. I'm going to try my best to upload more frequently. The new setup, I'm going to be kind of tidying up a little bit more, but I actually like this setup a lot more. I think, you know, there's space to put stuff behind. The sunlight isn't too jarring. So yeah, see you guys around. Thanks.